14 of the brain, and we're pretty much covering, let's see, up to this point, we talked about the areas, the regions of the brain. Hopefully, you guys remember that we have looked at the different regions. We have that cerebrum, the cerebellum, the brainstem, and one of the things that I've been trying to point out, not all of the models have it, but you know, one of the things I've been trying to point out is the connection to the endocrine system that we're going to have. So we've been looking at these parts of the brain, and in some cases how the parts are going to be working. So we've made it up to the point where we're looking at this part right here that we tend to associate as being the brain. That's what we tend to think of when we hear that term. And this area that we are in, this area is considered to be our higher order thinking skills, okay? Mainly because this area, this region of the brain, the cerebrum, it is our seat of consciousness, meaning we are aware of the information that is entering into this area of the brain. So this area of the brain, it's very large, but some of the things that it's going to have to do, those gyri that we kind of looked at on Tuesday, where we had like the post-central, pre-central, that sort of thing, think about the amount of information that's coming in, okay? Think about that amount of information. That is a lot of information that's coming in. So this area of the brain, because it is going to be conscious, it's going to have to be able to make sense of this information. So not only when we look at sensory information that has to come in, motor information that has to go out, all right, it's going to want to associate it, okay? The information that's going to come in, that sensory information, we're going to be looking at information that will make its way, a lot of it, to the thalamus and then be projected, okay? But here's the thing. When we're looking at this structure that we have, because we're going to have frontal, parietal, temporal, occipital, insula underneath, okay? Well, the thalamus, when that information comes in, we might have to take that information, okay, and we might have to get information that maybe came up the left side to the right side of the brain, from the left side, from the right side to the left, which we do, okay, and then I might need for that information to go from one lobe to the next, or I might need that information to be able to cross to other areas. And then once we've made sense of it, we've got to make sure that the motor command, the effect, okay, goes back out. So what we're going to find for the neurons in this part of the brain, what we're going to see, yes, we've mentioned that there's a lot of the cerebral white matter, meaning the myelinated fibers. Those are the axons, okay? Remember that those nerve cell bodies, dendrites, synapses, are going to be found somewhere else, all right? So the myelinated white axons, the white fiber axons, those are going to be the axons, the tracks that are present. So in this region of the brain, we're going to have projection tracks, commissural tracks, because what is this area right here? The central commissure, okay? And I'm going to have association tracks. Projection, vertical, between higher, this is our higher order thinking, these are not, okay? These, and especially the brain stem, primitive, okay? So, between the higher, lower, brain and spinal cord centers, they're going to be able to carry information between my cerebrum and the rest of the body. Does that make sense? Commissural, because I have this commissure between the two halves, it will actually allow information to pass from the left to the right, right to left. Kind of cool. Corpus callosum. Okay. Y'all can tell I'm running.
I was wondering what that was.
Yeah. Y'all can tell I'm running behind this morning and trying to catch up. Whew. Okay. Association tracks. Traffic was horrible getting here. Association tracks. Okay. Now, this is where we get to connect information on the same side of the brain from one lobe to the next. So, we can have in this area, these tracks, these fibers, they can be long or short, meaning they could connect one lobe to the next or to another, or they may simply need to do one gyri to another gyri. So that would just be a short fiber. They help with linking perception. Is everybody familiar with that? Okay. And memory centers. Now, we're not going to get into the full working of the brain, but, well, basically how like memories and everything are done, because that's a process that pretty much occurs your entire lifespan. Okay. And anything, I don't know if you guys know this, but like every face that we see, the brain makes a snapshot of it, whether you have purposely noticed it or not. Did y'all know that? Okay, so the brain is gathering sensory information, because that would be sight. Okay, so it's gathering sensory information, the sight, sound, smell, all this information 24/7. Okay, and what it does is it takes that information that we have been exposed to, all right, what we've seen, whether we really paid attention to it or not, okay, it takes that information and anything new that we give it, it tries to
make sense of it. So it wants to make connections between any information that's already stored, which starts from, they say now, even before birth, okay, and continues until we die. So it tries to take information that it's paying attention to and anything that we have that's new and make sense of it, okay? The brain's constantly doing that. One of the other things that it will help with, because we have memories or information that we may have learned, the association that can occur. Being able, for example, to look at a flower like a rose, know what it is, and then maybe imagine the actual scent of it. So it's like taking everything that we've learned and trying to put it into its categories. Now, doing that as a grand scheme of things for the brain is a lot. Okay, that's why we have a whole field of study in neurology. So these tracks, CTS, that are existing, those projection, commissure, and our association. This is a little bit of a graphical layout of how those fibers look going from one area of the brain to the next, from one lobe to the next. That cerebrum, even though that is our area of higher order thinking, we still have to have it be able to carry out making or being aware of a stimulus and giving a response to it. So just like we tend to think about with the brain or the body as a whole, any type of sensory information that's going to be perceived, picked up on the right, we tend to think of the left side of the brain looking at that. Yeah. And vice versa. Is that always the case? No. But for the most part, in the grand scheme of things, yes. Left controls right, right controls left of the body. So we have the ability to make connections between higher order and the rest of the body. We've got the ability to look from one side to the next, left to right. Then we have the ability to make connections lobe to lobe, actually gyri to gyri. Something that wasn't taught when I was in school, because this is such new information. So that shows you how old I am. Now, if we think about this area of the brain, the cerebrum, like we've mentioned, this outer portion, this outer covering almost, that is termed the cerebral cortex. It's like, well, if you look at the pictures and the representations that they give, they try to show the representations of this area of the gray matter. See how they're trying to show it look like a layer just going all the way around, and then the white matter in the middle with gray dispersed around it. Okay? So that cerebral cortex, because it's the gray matter is the area for my nerve cell bodies and my dendrites and other synapses that might occur. So this would be the area for